All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Budget Committee on this cold, blistery winter day. I think it is it feels like -6 apparently, 20, 30, something like that. Sunshine will be here soon. Today we have quite a few items on the agenda. So for Budget Committee members, we'll start with the minutes, then we'll go to the Selectmen's report. Kim did try to organize us. You have on your desk, you have a list of the budgets that we'll look through in order. So that's this page with January 8th on the top. So we'll start with social services, nonprofits, then town departments, then board committees and others. But we'll go line by line. I know we have a lot of folks in the audience from each of these member committees that will want to speak. All right, so let's start with the approval of the minutes from December 18th. Any edits or comments, questions? Changes, John?
On the first page, right under where it says approval of minutes, we had a discussion about the proposed new Tahoe police car, and it says it was clarified, but I don't think these notes clarify what we decided. My understanding, and Emily or anybody else could certainly correct me, is that initially we had an $80,000 item in for the Tahoe with the fit out, or what do you call it, the upgrade that it needs to go online. That she reduced that number to $60,000, and the list price of the car was somewhere around $55,000. And the difference between 55 and 60 was to be part of the contribution to upgrading the car for the police, the remainder of which would come out of a police revolving fund. Am I correct in that?
Hello, mostly correct. The all-in total cost is going to be approximately $80,000. So I was going to ask for 60 in the operating budget, and that will pay for the vehicle, and then the remainder will go toward the upfitting of the cruiser, everything that the cruiser needs, and then any cost over that 60,000 will come out of the detail revolving fund.
Okay, I dropped detail. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's all right.
I got pretty close.
Yeah, very
okay.
good.
So I don't think this minute really reflects that. And I think there's enough meat in here that if we had to go back to this, that it would be nice that were included in there.
So make a suggestion so we want to approve the minutes. You'd like to see another version of the minutes that include that?
I would say that the line item cost for the police station was $60,000. Of the $60,000, $55,000 was for the purchase of the car. The remaining amount was for what would be the term, Emily? Upgrading the car?
Upfitting.
Upfitting the car up to about $80,000 if needed. So.
Okay. Why don't we finish other edits, and then we'll discuss if we want to see that in writing, just so that you're satisfied with the language that's in the minutes.
Okay.
We can always approve these minutes next time, too.
Would it be helpful, Mr. Chair, if I submitted a very short memo to the Budget Committee outlining exactly what the math is, so to speak?
That'd be great.
I can do that for your next meeting.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that idea, too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or edits on minutes from the 18th?
Move to approve as amended.
Well, we're probably... John's got more.
I think at the bottom of page 2, it gets a little complicated in that last sentence. When there are some unplanned issues like the phone take-back program because of some contaminants in the phone we had with Class B, the town, and I think now had to pay $2,500 for disposal of the phone. So I think you want to take now, new one out and put in now had. Says what I think they want to know.
Okay.
I think I might have one more. Perhaps this can be confirmed by Sam. On page, was it 3?
3.
4? I'm sorry, on page 4, under highway streets, it says fuel costs have decreased due to more efficient newer vehicles. Is that generally correct, or was it just with the big trucks where we're actually having decreased fuel efficiency?
I wouldn't say it's across the board, they're all more fuel efficient, but most of the bigger, newer trucks are more fuel efficient than the older ones are. We just still have some of the older ones in the fleet, but.
Okay, because I guess we were understanding that they were less fuel efficient because of environmental concerns, so.
So, like I said, some of them are more fuel efficient and some are not. It depends on which trucks, because some of the trucks have bigger motors than the other ones. So it is a little bit, some do, some don't. A little bit of contradiction there.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'll vacate the question. It's easier that way, I think.
Okay.
And then, while Sam's there, on the transfer station, the cover, the landfill monitoring, actually, that's the old landfill, right, out?
Yep, correct. on
And
the
it's to
road.
see that the cover is in place and so forth.
Yep, to make sure it's not leaking. Yep.
And how do we describe that landfill where it's located? Shepherd Pits or what?
Yeah, Mountain Road landfill is kind of what I've always known it as. I don't think the Shepherd Pit is something different. That's the town pit. So.
Yeah, okay. No, I would think that we just should put the old landfill in there, because where the stump dump was, used to be a landfill too, so,
Correct.
So just change it to old landfill?
yeah.
It's fine.
For anybody who's awake, I'm finished, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in lieu of approving, no pun intended, why don't we wait for our next meeting? We'll revise the minutes. Chief will supply us with some language for the car, and then we'll approve the minutes next meeting for the 18th, if everybody's okay with that. Okay, sounds good. All right, why don't we move on to the Selectmen's report?
All right, in our last meeting on December 19th, we finalized the septic health regulations. The regulation requires that all residents in town with a private septic system must pump the tank once every 3 years. There's a waiver process for individuals who use less than 50% of the capacity of their tank. An example is a 5-bedroom house with only 1 to 2 people living in it. We will have a waiver approval process put in place ahead of the effective date on January 1st, 2026. We will also be taking this first year to educate the residents of the new regulation and get people to start submitting their receipts so we can set up the tracking system in the town offices. The selectmen and members of the Police Facilities Advisory Committee will be working on presentations that will be delivered to residents over the next 2 months, leading up to town meeting on the police station project and projected costs. We will be discussing that tomorrow at our tomorrow night's selectmen's meeting. Tomorrow night, we will also have members of the water precinct attending, so we may start talking about water conservation activities. And finally, hopefully, all of you attended the school district deliberative session on Saturday. Almost 1,600 people showed up for the meeting. A petition article that would have kept per student costs at $27,000 was soundly defeated with a vote of 1,435 no votes and 113 yes votes. I thought it was a very well-run meeting. I thought all the comments from all of the people there were made civilly. There were no screaming voices. Everybody was respectful of one another. It's a very complex issue, and we need to really use that energy that was in that building on Saturday to continue conversations, especially at the state level. I just heard today that there will be a presentation by the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project scheduled for January 28th at 6:30 at the high school. I've seen this presentation before. It's very informative. I encourage everyone on this committee to attend and bring your questions. And that's it.
Right. Any questions for BB? All right, seeing or hearing none, we will move on to the budget review. So we will start with social services. If there's a member of the community that wants to come up and speak to talk to us about the budget item, feel free to come up to the podium and announce your name. I think the mic's turned on. If it's red, it's turned off. Just click it to turn it green to turn it on. And then you can stay up there. We'll be asked questions, I'm sure, by some folks. So why don't we start with New London Hospital. For Budget Committee members, it's on page 15 of your budget, section 6, and it looks like we have a revised number. We have a line item for $211,243, but here revised for $191,910. So if you just want to let us know your names and give us an overview, that'd be great.
Oh, sure. My name is Lisa Cohen. I am the CFO at New London Hospital. The number that we are looking for is the revised number, the $191,910, which is actually a decrease from the cost of the prior year. And that decrease relates to we reviewed our methodology and we took a 5-year average of all the calls from all of the towns that we use. And based upon that, New London received a decrease in their cost for 2025. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Any questions, Karen?
Hi, thank you very much for being here tonight. A question I have is, in the letter that was sent, there was an addendum or information behind it that has a history or a trend in terms of the net gain loss.
Yes.
And it looks like it's trending in the red, and particularly it's gone up significantly. So I just wanted to ask if you could address that trend and how you see it going forward and how that all works.
Yes, so we take the full revenue for the services, that we bill. That's at the top. For those of you who have the packet, let me see if I can show you. So, apologize, it's a little bit little. That's that sort of top line. We then take deductions from revenue. So we may bill, say, $100 for something, but the insurance company will never give us $100. So that deductions from revenue sort of gets us to the point of what we actually get paid for what we bill. We then go down to other revenue. So if we get any grants or any additional money, that goes into that area. And then we talk about our expenses. Overall, the service line does lose money. We know that. What we try to do is, it's a very important service for us to provide to the community. And so we partner with all of the 7 towns that we work with to try to create sort of I would say a bit of a unique plan where we optimize the hospital setup with the towns to create a cooperative that can keep the service going. So we do sustain losses. Those losses the hospital kicks in for, that $350,000 at the bottom.
Right.
And we try to find that balance of what we can sustain and what we need help from the communities we serve.
So this negative 351 then, is that net of what the communities contribute?
Yes.
I got it. And how long, it does seem to be going, that differential in the red is getting larger. Do you see that continuing, or do you see it correcting itself, or how long can this be sustained?
Well, we're
That's what I'm
trying to
asking.
do everything that we can to offset that. Much like everyone's experiencing, our prices are rising, our salaries need to be adjusted, and things like that. But we are able to optimize utilizing our ambulance staff in our ED when they're not going out on calls. That has a combination of several benefits. Number one, they're utilizing their skills. They're working in the ED with our doctors from Dartmouth Hitchcock, and so they're performing care when they're not out in the field. The other thing that it does is we're able to get some reimbursement from Medicare, and you'll see that we put it back to the P&L. We get some reimbursement for that time from Medicare on our cost report that helps offset some of those losses. So we're dedicated to continuing to provide this service to our community. It is not something that we foresee changing in the future.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Any other questions?
Derek is our director of the ambulance service, if you have any questions for him.
No. Thank you.
Very much. Should I leave this on?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next line item will be COA for $38,500.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Kelly Keith. I'm the Executive Director of COA. We are again seeking funds to support the seniors in the Kearsarge area and New London specifically. We have the most amount of participation from New London seniors of any of the 9 towns. Currently, we have 32 seniors from New London on our transportation services. We take them from New London to Concord, to Dartmouth, to Manchester, wherever their medical needs may take them. We supply durable medical equipment to New London seniors. We have 32 programs and services that New London seniors participate in. We have, I think, 22 people on outdoor recreation for seniors, and across the board, I think we have 3,000 members, and 60% are from New London, and we'd appreciate your support.
Any questions?
Yeah, just comment. Kelly, do you have, I'm looking at it over several year lifespan. Your request has maintained steady at 38.5. Is there any reason why it still remains at 38.5 instead of, at least coming up with a price of inflation?
So in 2022, we did get an increase from New London. We were level funded all the years prior to that. I think it was like 18 years. We are going to ask for an increase next year across the board for all 9 towns. We asked for 2 of the other towns this year to go up based on their participation, is what we base it on. Next year, we're going to cross the board ask again.
Good, thank you. I do believe, and I think I'm not the only one who believes that. The services that you provide are immeasurable and actually life-supporting to the people of this town. Our population is not getting any younger, so I do believe that you are doing you're doing God's work.
Thank you.
And keep on doing it.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Lake Sunapee Regional VNA, $12,748. Do we have any representatives? No? Any questions from Budget Committee members on that line item? Down $12. Down $12. There we go. All right, CASA, $2,000.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Charlene Baxter. I live in New London, and I am a CASA. CASA is an organization statewide that recruits and trains and supports advocates who represent children, babies through age 21. When they, through no fault of their own, find themselves in the family court system as a result of abuse or neglect, we are appointed to represent those children in court. There are several other CASAs who live in New London. I was asked to represent that group tonight. The request is for $2,000, which is about the cost of supporting and training a CASA volunteer for a year. I will answer any questions that you have, but very briefly, the state requires that a guardian ad litem be appointed for a child in the family court system. Typically, that is a CASA when they have to pay a guardian ad litem for that service if there are not enough CASAs. That cost is $60 an hour plus travel costs to those attorneys. CASA saves the state about $3.5 million a year by training advocates to do this job. We're the only nonprofit organization in the state that does this work. Currently, there are 642 volunteer advocates statewide. Last year, we represented 78% of the children in the family court system. Our goal is 100, so we're still recruiting and training new volunteers. Every town in Merrimack County has CASA cases. New London is served by the Newport Family Court, which last year served 35 children. 4 of those children came from New London. New London families are affected in other ways because there are grandparents and other relatives who sometimes take these children into their care temporarily, and there are also foster families in New London who are caring for some of these kids. So that is our request, and we thank New London for the support that they've provided for several years. And so the request is for $2,000 for this year.
Thank you for what you do, Charlene. Any questions for Charlene? I have a quick question. Yep, Lindsay?
Hi, Charlie. Thank you. My parents were guardian ad litems too, so I know it's pretty awesome what you're doing. Quick question. Does the state require a CASA rep at these proceedings? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's a volunteer-based program by the state?
Well, the state requires a guardian ad litem. CASAs are guardian ad litems who are not paid. We are volunteers. But the state requires every child to have a representative in the courts, in the family court system. Yes.
Okay. But the majority of you guys are, and trust me, I want you to have this $2,000. I just
No,
want a
it's
clarification on the state. It is
It's a state
sometimes a
requirement.
volunteer position, though?
Well, CASAs, as I said, there are 642 of us right now who do this work. We only took 78% of the cases last year, so they had to pay
Gotcha.
GALs, who are typically attorneys, for the remainder. But yeah,
think-
it's required.
I think I was just questioning the state's funding, not ours. Don't worry.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate the question because it's sort of scary to think about what would happen if there weren't CASAs doing this work. So, any other questions?
Is the level of service you provide commensurate with the budget request? Because I noticed that you had $4,000 before, then $1,500, now $2,000. And CASA seems to be, one of your members, Mike Cornelio, who's I know quite well. It's he came to Rotary and spoke to us, and it's incredible need for children.
CASA is trying to make a very aggressive effort statewide to go to every town and ask for funding. That is a process that's taking some years. So it's $2,000 is what it costs to support a CASA advocate for a year, and it seems like an appropriate ask.
Do you have enough with one in London, or?
Well, there are several CASAs in New London right now. And
yours is for training?
Yes. Recruitment and training.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Charlene. All right. Next up is Community Action Program.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Beth Hayward. I'm the Director of Strategy and Planning for Community Action Program. And first, we just want to say thank you so much to the town of New London. You guys have supported us for years and years and years. And what this funding does, it allows us to have year-round resource centers that people can come to. And the funding that we have for certain programs doesn't cover the cost for that. So we would have to have part-time people, we would have to be closed for part of the year, and this allows us to be open all year round. So that's kind of what this funding is for. What you have in front of you is a little different than you've ever had before. We had been getting a lot of requests from town for more information regarding all of the services each town gets from CAP rather than just the specific ones from the resource center. So we just went ahead and did it across the boards and sent all the resources. So everything you see, this is everything we do for your town except for transportation. And that's mainly because it's public transportation and we don't collect the data the same way we collect it for all of these programs. So we are asking for the same as last year, $6,000. And New London residents received about a little less than $89,000 in services this past year. We are able to support 113 residents, and another new number this year is meals. So that's 3,491 meals, and that is meals made up of congregate meals, Meals on Wheels, summer food meals. Those are the three. And we helped 56 New London households in the past year. So we're very thankful for the funding you provide us, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Beth? Karen?
Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Can you explain how people get access to your programming?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 6 resource centers. One of the closest is in Warner for New London residents. But with most of our programs, it can be done email, fax, mail. Ever since COVID, the face-to-face has really it happens, but it's much, much more rare. And so people usually call us. We usually email them an application, whether it's for fuel assistance, electric assistance. They can come and get food we have 4 food pantries. The one in Warner is not run by Community Action, but there is a food pantry right there. And so they can either call, email, and then if they call or email our resource center and they need something else, then we give that referral. So we say, hey, this is who you want to talk to, and we help we do the warm handoff and make sure if it's Head Start they need that they get in contact with the right people, or whether it's WIC or whatever it may be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Beth? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move to page 17, still section 6, King Solomon's Lodge for $6,000. And Kim, this is a new request, correct?
Hello, I'm Michael Brown. I'm a worshipful master over at King Solomon's Lodge. With me today, I've got Charlie Hafner, who is our treasurer at King Solomon's Lodge and a past master, and Howard Hoke, who is our chaplain at King Solomon's Lodge. And so we are applying to the town for funds as we work closely with the town, as we provide resources to the town for parking for Elkins, for Pleasant Lake. We also provide our facilities for the bandstand across from Pleasant Lake for different events there. We also, at Thanksgiving, provide meals to the community. As Masons, we are big on community outreach. We've worked with different New London organizations, such as Kearsarge Neighborhood Partners. So we've done this for years. Yeah.
Lindsay, yeah, go ahead.
Quick question, you had the boat wash there, station there in the summer too?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
No,
No?
Elkins Fish and Game Club?
But you guys, they do it in your parking lot, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Questions? Karen?
Thank you. I recall when the presentation was made to the Board of Selectmen that it was mentioned the value that the lodge's parking lot serves pertaining to the parking of boats, of the trailers when people use the boat launch, and the mayhem that could likely result if there wasn't that option made available. And I was just curious, do you have any idea how many trailers or how many people take advantage of having access to your parking? Thank you.
Yes, in the summer, once spring comes in, you can drive by and see at least 4 to 5 boats there, trailers there at a time, especially at the height, especially after Memorial Day weekend and leading up to then. We get a lot of traffic then in that area. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to page 18, still section 6, care of trees, $4,000.
That's not technically a nonprofit. That's the town's funds. Dave Carey is our tree warden. And so we use that money to plant new trees, to replace trees that we have to take away.
Okay. Any questions on care of trees? Looks like we all like trees. Okay, so we'll keep it. Garden Club, $1,500, which is different than what's in the budget, and at least on mine, I have $2,500. Do we have any Garden Club representatives?
Get the Bob seat.
Hi, you get us both. Sandy Schmid and Suzanne Hammond, co-presidents of the Garden Club. Actually, the board is asking for $1,500 instead of what we got last year. We had a successful garden tour this summer, and we know that there are other people and agencies and groups that need money. So thank you very much. It's a joy to be part of New London and whatever we can do. Any questions?
Mark?
So the $1,500 that you're asking for, will that be able to cover what you want to do this coming season?
Very successful garden tour, which we have not raised money for 4 years, 5 years.
Yes, yeah.
So we're well covered right now.
And so for the following year, what is your plan for the following year? Will you be in a deficit?
Right now, we don't know. There are a number of projects that we would like to be doing, some of which are with the town, and we're kind of waiting to get that going. It's hard to know from one year to the next what kind of additional projects we'll be working on. We always do about $8,500 worth of services and donations and stuff like that, in addition to administrative costs. But it looks like at this moment, we're okay. We would come and ask you for more if we needed it. But right now, it looks like we'll be okay for at least a couple of years.
Just to clarify, the money that you're asking for, there will be no change in what you're attempting to do from last year to this year.
The cost of Christmas trees and greens, according to the rumor mill, will be lower next year.
We're not sure we believe that, but anyway.
We have any Spring Ledge people here?
But we understand the drought has created opportunities and not some opportunities. Our trees are going to be affected by the drought, even though we have rain right now. But the Christmas tree, people think they'll be in good shape. So a lot of our money goes to wreaths, trees, that kind of thing. So there we be.
All right.
Don't quote me on that, though.
Any
If your
questions?
Christmas tree goes up, buy a fake one.
Karen, you have a question?
No, don't buy a fake one. No.
Thank you. Your work you do always is so nice, and it's a pleasure to see all the beautiful flowers. And as I recall, at one of the hearings at last year's budget committee, your budget was actually increased. And I think there was talk about doing some hanging baskets for Main Street, and it recognized the fact that the Main Street water main project was underway. And now that that's wrapped, do you anticipate being able to do those hanging baskets for the upcoming summer?
That's a lot trickier than it sounds. For instance, when you want to put up hanging baskets, you have to have places to put them. And you have to have people that want to or are able to fill them and maintain them. Right now, the garden club, we do 14 gardens around New London. And at this moment, we're not able to say, oh yeah, we'd like to take on an additional 50 hanging baskets on places that are not even there on Main Street, and with water that's not there to do it. So at this point, that sounds beautiful, but doesn't exactly work. Sorry.
Okay, no, I recall that conversation around trying to
Yeah.
get that done, and I think there might have been some conversation about potentially DPW being able to assist in some capacity, but obviously that was a year ago, probably more now. But, so if that's not the case, then do you anticipate using the entire, using the budget that's in place, or do you think you'll have some left over because that piece of it isn't happening?
Well, we want some trees trimmed, which we cannot do. That costs us money. Our annuals are more expensive, even though our trees are not going to be. Our annuals, if you haven't gone out and bought a little pot, they will be more expensive. So being gardeners it's costly. And we're trying to go green, so we cannot use all the fertilizer, and that's very expensive to go in that route. And then we have the wildflower garden for kids in 3rd grade.
All the 3rd graders in town spend a day, or actually an hour, talking about different kinds of wildflowers, flowers, and then they go out and they plant wildflowers in 3 gardens at the elementary school. And one of the things that we need to add additional money to for that program is that's a swamp area in some parts of the 3 gardens, and we actually need to put some additional soil so that we don't try to put plants in swamp ant land because the kids absolutely love it, and they come away saying, oh, can we do this every year? Well, no, it's only for 3rd grade. But anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much, and it sure sounds like you do an awful lot, and I think it's greatly appreciated.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love it. We love New
Good you
London.
have fun with it, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Garden Club? Just making sure it doesn't look like there are any. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to Lake Protective Association. So we might have representatives from Messer Pond, Pleasant Lake, Little Lake Sunapee, and Lake Sunapee. Why don't we start with Messer Pond?
I was hoping I'd go later and then say what they said, but I guess I have to say it. I'm Audrey Chisnor, I'm president of Messer Pond Protective Association. I don't know how many years we've been doing this, but this is a program that works with the New Hampshire Lakes Association, and what we do is we check boats at our boat launch, and we educate about making sure they clean their boats before and after they go from pond to pond, so they don't bring invasives into our pond or take something into another pond. And we have people who they're called the Lake Host Program, that sit at the boat launch and talk to all the people. They also keep records of boats coming in and out for New Hampshire lakes, and I don't know what they do with that, but we do it. And it's really helpful, and it's especially the education for people. And most people know, but not everybody, so it's always good to have that. And we have our volunteers, or matching funds, have clocked 250 hours in 2024, and that well exceeds the 100% grant match, and we just have people there on the weekends and holidays. So we are asking for $3,900, which I think is the same. I think we try to we really make it up with the volunteers. Any questions?
Not
All right,
seeing any.
good to go. Now other people can say, yeah, what she said.
Anyone from Pleasant Lake?
This is the second hat I'm wearing this
Double duty,
evening.
yeah.
Charlene Baxter. My husband and I manage the Lake Host program at Pleasant Lake. It's a very popular lake, and New London is a very popular destination. You have the letter that we presented to you with the request. I'll be brief and answer any questions. We have 4 lake hosts, and they staff our boat launch from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day. We're very, very fortunate to have pretty overwhelming support, and we know we're lucky that we can pay lake hosts to do this 8 hours a day, basically from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. Actually, that's more than 8 hours, but they are there all of the time to check boats that are going into the lake and as they come out of the lake. This summer, we inspected 1,819 watercrafts. 691 of them were motorized, 1,128 were kayaks and paddle boards. We spent for this service a little over $19,000. 2,850 came from the New Hampshire Lakes Association grant that we'd submitted to them. 7,000 came from you, the town of New London, and the balance was 9,497 that came from the Pleasant Lake Protective Association. And the members of the PLPA are very, very committed to this work. The good news is that this past summer we did not have any fines or saves. Our lake hosts did not discover any invasives on boats going into the lake. And as Audrey mentioned, for Messer Pond, the same is true. We have worked very hard to educate boaters on the principles of clean, drain, and dry. So the good news is we didn't have any fines. The not so good news is that there are a number of water bodies nearby that are dealing with milfoil infestations. There's a new threat, which is curly leaf pondweed, which was found in 3 surrounding lakes in 2024. So when we monitor what's happening in neighboring lakes, we pay very close attention with our lake hosts because those boaters are likely to show up here. We intend to staff the boat launch next summer at the same level from Saturday of Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day. For us to be able to do that, we'll rely on the support from the town of New London. I mean, there's just no question that you all understand how protecting the quality of our lakes enhances property values, enhances the quality of our environment, and certainly the sense of community that people enjoy here. So profound thank you to the town of New London for this support. Any questions I can answer?
Not seeing any. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. Little Sunapee?
I'm Kathy Thomas. I'm the treasurer of the Little Lake Sunapee Protective Association. I just wanted to thank you for your support in the past. I don't really have a whole lot more to add. Our numbers are very, very similar to Pleasant Lake's. We interacted with upwards of 2,000 boats during 2024. The one change for us is that we would like to man the boat launch past Labor Day because there continues to be boats well into October, and so we're hoping to man the boat launch all the way to Columbus Day weekend. Okay. So, you have any questions?
I'm Charlie Kelsey, so you know my wife Cynthia, who serves on the Little Lake Sunapee Protective Association, and we have this thing called coffee time in the morning, and we have robust discussion about the association and what it does, and I think it applies to all of the associations. And I challenge her quite frequently around what difference is it really making, other than we feel good and we provide a resource and we're welcoming, and our incidence of invasive species aren't dramatically high, but there are concerns. And generally, there is also the concern about the health of our water bodies, the watershed itself. And there's a person in this room that can speak to it greater than I. But I would like to know what you feel the difference is that these hostess programs actually create.
I think the education portion of interacting with the boat owners is priceless. And I think, especially since they're dealing with both motorboats, the fishermen tend to be pretty well educated, but we see an awful lot of smaller boats as well, and these people don't necessarily know that it's an issue taking a kayak from one lake to another. So I think that education component is crucial. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to add to that, as you know, my family's owned lake houses, and one of the lakes did get, not around here, it was in Minnesota, don't worry, but it got overtaken by mussel, zebras, or whatever. Your property value goes down a lot when a lake is in, has invasive species, and people don't want to buy those properties, and then your highest tax bracket or tax base has their property values go down. So it's a small investment, to check on a couple of weeds, but it has a huge repercussion, I think, coming back.
I couldn't agree more. I am a big advocate because I live near Little Lake Sunapee, but I have a really strong concern about the health of our watersheds and our economy and quality of life for all residents, whether you're on a lake or not, or near a lake. We all use it, and these are incredible resources that create this bucolic and beautiful place we have the privilege of living, and we need to do more. So I'm an advocate for doing whatever we can to help the associations that receive significant money from their members, which is their primary revenue source, and that there's a lot more we need to do at the state level to really get some serious support and regulation that we can utilize in a positive way to allow access, but also do our utmost to protect these resources.
And the other change for us is also getting the money from the town allows us to spend the rest of our money in other ways. And the one project that we completed this year was the Buckland Beach project, but there are other projects that we're hoping to undertake this year in terms of controlling erosion, and I think that these are all important things for protecting the lake.
Thanks, Kathy. Oh, you have one, Lou?
Yeah.
Sorry, Kathy. We have a...
No, I wanted to echo Charlie Kelsey's comment, because it's our quality of life, our tax value, our enjoyment, the reason why we moved over here was that quality of life. If there's, I will tell you personally, I think you, on the lake protective community, you're being fairly thrifty, and I applaud that. But I think if you ask for additional resources, I certainly would vote for that. All it takes is one unknowledgeable fisherman to come in with a boat with spiny water fleas, and we're cooked, because we'll never get them out. So, go forth and do good things.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lou. Lake Sunapee. Maybe anything different than any other member, or
No.
something you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I'm Elizabeth Harper. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Sunapee Protective Association, and you all have done an incredible job of explaining why it's so important to protect our lakes and watersheds, and it's really heartening to hear that everyone understands that, so I won't reiterate all of those points. But just to explain, we've provided lake host program on Lake Sunapee since 2000, so almost 25 years now. It's one of the lakes in the state that remains free of invasives. This last year, having the funding for our lake host program meant that we were able to catch curly leaf pondweed and find a small patch that it established and hire divers and to be able to eradicate that before it spread. So I think these programs are incredibly important to prevent invasive species spread. In 2024, we had 12 paid lake hosts that staffed 5 boat launches on Lake Sunapee. It was over 2,600 hours of lake hosts that conducted over 5,500 inspections. So we feel like this program is a very important part of our ability to prevent invasive species spread in the watershed. And we do get funding also from Newberry and Sunapee in addition to what New London contributes. And that pays for a little less than half of the program. The rest is donations from our members.
Actually, I was going to ask, do you know what the amount that Sunapee and Newberry pay?
It's the same. We ask the same
Okay.
from the 3 largest towns in the watershed.
Great. Okay.
So,
Any questions for Elizabeth?
okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right. Let's move on to Chamber of Commerce. So that's going to be on page 9 of your budget. Anyone here from the Chamber? Not seeing anybody. Any questions that we want to? Does anyone have any questions about Chamber?
Yeah, why'd the price go up?
John would like to know why the price went up. Where is Chamber? Why am I not seeing it? Page 9, it's at the top. So the price went, the budget was at 12.5, is now at 15,000. So maybe that is a note. We can make a note. Who's our Chamber? Ashley.
Ashley. I think they asked for an increase last year as well. I would suggest most of the money's used to man their information booths, so I would assume that they're experiencing increased wages, just like everybody else. So last year, they asked for an increase. It wasn't approved by the Selectmen. This year, it is.
Okay. All right. Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Planning Commission. 7,300. Karen?
Could we just go back to the chamber?
Sure.
So when they asked for the increase this year and they got approved, how was that justified? Did they say what would happen if they didn't get the increase? Would it be wouldn't be, they couldn't staff the building? Just curious.
No, if they have less money, I guess that they would have less staffing if they had to make cuts in that area.
So it was solely for staffing of?
No, I wouldn't
of the
say it's
booth?
solely for salary.
the
That's what the majority of the money is used for.
Mm-hmm.
They also work with the Recreation Department, which I think you'll hear a little bit later on, but I think from what I understand from the years that I've heard their presentations, it's to keep the information booth open in the summertime. You know, so people, visitors to the area go there, they get directions, they get help, they, you know.
And that's the booth down
Yep.
by the common? I mean,
Yep.
across the street from the inn?
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Any questions on the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Planning Commission? None on that? All right, let's move on to Town Departments Board. So we'll start with Health Administration, page 15 of your budget.
I have one question.
Yeah, Charlie.
So we recently passed the regulations relative to septic that will increase some level of reporting, accounting, follow-up, possible inspection, and this budget seems fairly level to prior years. Do we anticipate that that's going to be a need?
Well, what we're hoping is that we're going to get new software to handle building permits and other kinds of permits, one of which will be the septic ordinance. So I think the group that worked on it envisioned that the amount of extra work would be able to be absorbed by office staff.
Okay.
And as this health administration includes health officer salary, right? Right.
Yeah.
So, as for next time, do you have that question too?
Yes.
Is that part of your question?
Yes, it is.
This might actually reduce some of the time that he's going out and inspecting failed septic systems. So that's kind of
Hope.
the hope
Yeah.
is that it will,
Okay.
it will allow, or he can be going out when a receipt might come in with a deficiency noted on it. He can go out and educate that property owner about best practices with regards to their septic system. So this first year will be practice.
Practice. Yeah, okay, thank you.
A point of clarification, in the line item, we have 6328, here is 6271. I know it's a small amount, but is there, which one should we be referring to?
I have 6271.
Okay.
I have 6271.
Okay. It must have been a woman. All right.
The date, 11/25/24.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, let's move on to welfare administration. Oh, Karen, sorry, you had a question.
Sorry. A few months ago, we had the presentation by the New Hampshire DES as it pertained to the hazardous waste contamination site. And I was curious, is the communication with regard to the status of that from DES, is that through the health officer and?
Which hazardous waste?
Well, the one
Oh,
off
New London Cleaners?
Newport Road that.
Yeah, that's not part of this budget at all. That's the state's budget.
No, I'm curious in terms of our communication with them. I think what we learned at the meeting is that correspondence had been coming from the state on the issue.
Yep.
And so going forward, there's a monitoring of that. I understand it's between the private party and the state, but the town is kept in the loop on communication as to the latest. And so I'm just curious, whose purview does that fall into? At the public hearing or the meeting, it was discussed that communication was going from DES to the health officer. And is that still the case, or has there been a person that is identified in the town to kind of stay in the loop? Because the issue
health
here
officer
seemed to
does-
catch us by
right,
surprise. So I'm
right.
just
So
trying
the
to
s- the
ask
health
if that loop
officer-
has been closed.
Yeah, he gets mail. He has a mailbox, so he will get the mail about anything that the state gives as far as that issue. He will communicate it with the selectmen. So if the selectmen wanted to do a mailing or put it in municipal matters or have a meeting about it, the selectmen would do that, and that would be covered under the selectmen's budget.
All right, so the monitoring, staying up to date on the status of that, it's all in place? in
As long
terms
as,
of the
right,
communication.
right, so the state they send mail or they send emails, and that goes to the health officer. He communicates it with the selectmen, so that doesn't really cost the town anything. It's if the selectmen decide to have, say, a public hearing about it, or post something on a bulletin board, or send out mailers with the information, that would be a cost, and that would be in the selectmen's budget.
I got it. Just making sure that the loop's been closed on that, and it sounds like it has. Thank you.
Next item, welfare administration.
Okay, so the selectmen have supported changing the welfare officer salary. It's been a stipend for probably forever. I recommended that it go to an hourly position, which would allow the person in that position to, I think, spend more time dealing with welfare applications. Celeste has been in the job probably, at least 20, 25 years. So I think it's, at some point she'll want to retire, I think. And if and when that happens, I think we'll need to get somebody in the position that will want something more than just a stipend. I think the person will have set some office hours and spend more time in the office than I think that Celeste has. Celeste can spend sometimes 20 hours in a week, 10 hours in a week. It's kind of all over the place. So I think once she decides to retire and we start looking for somebody else, I think it's more like a sort of a part-time job like we have in the finance office and, you know, places where we have part-time help supporting the effort. So the selectmen supported 15,000 there. So that's the administration piece. And then we have the welfare payments, which you'll see a sizable increase. And I think if you look over the past years, applicants for welfare are going up. The cost to help assist people, particularly with rental assistance, is up. So I recommend that we increase it to 40,000.
Questions for Kim? Yep, Karen?
Would you see this being looking down the road, is this a permanent need that you see, the need for from this point forward for part-time, and would you see this need for the increase that's being requested as being something that we would need to sustain?
Unless the state, a couple of things could happen. The state could become more generous and assist more. That's one possibility. Or the housing situation could change, where there's an overabundance of housing and rental costs go down. If those two things don't happen, I don't see the need going down or the need for a welfare officer to deal with applications.
Lindsay?
The admin position itself, it's required by the state, correct?
Well, the state requires us to have a welfare officer who deals with applications.
That's what I thought. Okay.
The state doesn't really care whether the person's a volunteer or it's an hourly or who it is, but that.
We are required to fulfill.
Yes, yes.
I also want to say, hearing you talk about the hours that Celeste has put into this, I know that she spends a lot of time on this. I think honestly, the position basically has been a volunteer position, and she's been giving the town a lot of her services free of charge. So that's why we support this, because Celeste isn't going to do this forever.
Karen, go ahead.
In terms of the activity, do you see it as, is it more intensive need or more frequent short-term needs? In terms of, is it a volume or a need or a combination?
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, it could be somebody who needs assistance for one thing one time. It could be somebody who needs many things over a month, over several months.
Have you considered looking at increasing the stipend versus going over to
Well,
part-time?
that certainly could,
Do you
the
see
selectmen,
that
I mean,
as
if the
an
selectmen
option?
wanted to make the 15,000 a stipend, they could do that as well. I mean, that, you know, it wouldn't, I don't think, really make a difference. I think that having somebody knowing that the hours they put in will be compensated for, I think that would be important. I'm not sure how many part-time people look for jobs that are stipends. That's kind of unusual. Selectmen are stipend, the treasurer's stipend. So I think it's common for those kinds of positions, but if Celeste decides that she wants to retire, I don't think it's that common that somebody would be looking for a part-time stipend job.
But also manage not knowing the job, that there's a skill set that you need to have, right? Some sort of
Right, so this-
education to do this properly versus just having someone fill out
Right.
forms.
So this amount would allow, let's say, this person to go to monthly welfare administrator meetings, to go to training, which Celeste has done in the past. She's been there, you know, so long, but a new person would need to get up to speed on those kinds of things. There's a lot that goes along with welfare.
All right, thank you.
I don't think I need to reiterate what an absolute treasure we have in our current welfare officer. I can say from personal knowledge, having seen, since it's a little bit, some of it is tied to emergency management, how the state has done a full retrenchment from their responsibility to people with not only less means, but post-COVID. So it's basically out on the towns. And I have seen Celeste in some instances use her own, not only her own time, but her own resources to ensure that our people are taken care of. So there's, if any, I do believe that the budget should probably be increased, given the tremendous service that Celeste does to our community. And I will say one thing, if anything, you are going to see the problem exacerbated in future years, given the lack of rental, the lack of rental availability in this area, combined with the lack of funds that people may have, combined with the lack of response from the state, basically throwing it in the hands of the local communities. And I think that's preposterous. They're doing that to education, and I think when it comes to our responsibility to our fellow human beings, they're doing that too.
Can I just add something, Lou? Thank you for your comments. When I ask questions, I just want to make it clear, I'm not coming from a point of view of having a position. I'm coming from a perspective of being able to justify a decision and being able to explain to the voters who we report to why it is, we went a certain way. So I ask a lot of questions. I could ask more, but I restrain myself, actually, and I appreciate the patience. But they don't come from a perspective of dogma or a position. They come from a perspective of, I'm really trying to understand. And,
God bless you.
Thank you.
If I may, but one of the things that I made the comments because I think there is a dearth of information available to the public as far as what the case of the plight of needy people in the state of New Hampshire, not, over and above your query. And I think our people need to understand that the state is defaulting on its responsibility to our human beings.
All right, some good discussion. Let's get on to some good discussion. Recreation. Putnam, I know, provided a couple pages that you all have around the recreation mission statement and programs that are offered.
Double-sided. Okay. So my name is Putnam Kidder. I am the Recreation Director, and glad to be here tonight. And I am joined by Jackie Christensen, who is our Recreation Chair. Other Recreation Commission members who are here are Julie Corey, Carl Leone, Kim Ilg, and Tara Stone, who had to leave a little bit earlier. And I think that's everybody, but glad that they're here as well. So you did receive a handout which gives you a snapshot of our mission and a lot of the work we do over the course of the year, highlighting a lot of the different seasonal offerings we put out there to the community and things that we do both large and small, an idea of some of the numbers we also do, and then with the many collaborations and other groups we work with over the course of our time, because the more people we can help and reach, the better, and working with other community partners is certainly a useful tool. On the second page, you will see the budget, which I'm going to discuss on the left side, and on the right side is the proposed budget by the Selectmen. So I will go through my budget, giving you the highlights, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have afterwards. And then after I go through that and answer your questions, Jackie's going to make a brief statement as well. So my budget of $236,900 $929. Again, I will go through and highlight some of the changes and rationale behind those changes, and then happy to answer any other questions with information I have afterwards. So the biggest change would be to our waterfront staff wages, and that would be for this year $65,000 and $65,002, and that is a reduction of $9,657 from fiscal year 2025. That reduction is trying to get what we actually spent over the last couple summers in line with what our projections were. When I project for staffing, I will project what the ideal coverage is for the beaches, and that would be 4 guards at Elkins and 3 guards at Buckland. And due to staffing issues and availability of lifeguards and beach attendants, we don't always get that ideal number, but we do always make sure that we can safely cover the beaches. So in an effort to make sure that our projected numbers weren't so much higher than our actuals, I've lowered that to a number that I feel like still offers us the ability to safely manage the beaches and staff the beaches for the days we're open, projected days that we're open, and also looking at the opportunity to give our lifeguards an increase of their starting wage, which I think is important to try to lure kids to come back, and then also to get us in line with other places that are offering more and more for kids this age, because some of the numbers there are pretty high. So we really want to try to get quality staff to come back to us, and then also kind of entice new kids to join us every year. So we're increasing that, and that is the waterfront staff wages piece. The other increase I had was looking at beach equipment maintenance, which was going up $500 to try to cover replacing swim lines, swimline markers, swimline hardware. I always try to do the best I can to get as much as I can out of those pieces of equipment, but some of them are going to definitely need to be replaced. So we want to have an increase in that line item. And then the other increase was in lifeguard and swim supplies, which is looking at increasing $1,000 to replace some of our first aid supplies, which some of them have expired. You know, the cold packs that we've used frequently there, to be able to look at getting our first aid supplies up to snuff and have enough for what we need for them, but also understanding that we don't want to spend too much money, but we need to replace some of those. And then also looking at getting our uniforms, which are, we give each kid a sweatshirt and a t-shirt for staff. So we're going to need to order some more of those as well. My estimate is that $1,000 should cover both of those needs. Happy to entertain any questions you have about specifics in my proposed budget.
Hi, Putnam. Help me understand why we staff the lifeguard ratio and attendant ratio that you just shared. Because, and where I'm coming from is, can we do it with less and still do it, understanding that there are hours of operation that you staff to, and that doesn't necessarily align with beach utilization by whomever. So, and related to that is the what's a need, what's a want, what's an obligation. And my understanding is the town is not obligated to provide waterfront staff. But we've created a structure that we now support despite it being an obligation. And I'm coming from the standpoint of not just your budget. I'm coming from the standpoint of the whole budget. And this gets me to the place of what I want versus what we absolutely need. So the staffing component, which carries a lower number, which is great, I still don't understand why that staffing level has to be as you identified it.
So the ideal would be 4 at Elkins and 3 at Buckland Beach. And that was numbers that were given to us by our consultant, who is a lifeguard certified trainer, and he's also a water safety instructor. So those are the numbers that he said that he feels would be ideal staffing numbers to cover those beaches. I've proposed to do 3 at Elkins and then 2 at Buckland to still safely cover those times and those areas. And also, I think that if we have some wiggle room, that if a kid gets sick or if a kid doesn't show up, then we don't have to close the beaches, because we're not able to, we can't just have one guard stay on all day, because that's not safe.
We aren't closing a beach because we don't have a lifeguard. We are providing a lifeguard service, an attendant service, in a defined set of hours, on defined days of the week. We are not obligated to do that, right? So if I don't really understand why we can't adjust our staffing downward and still provide that service for some of those hours. Versus what a consultant tells us. I'm looking at it from the standpoint, we're trying to find ways to adjust our budgets to help allocate money in other areas that are absolute needs, not absolute wants. I'd love to say, let's do everything. So I'm particular on that particular component of your budget with a different staffing mindset than you have.
Charlie, could I ask, like, what's your thought process? You're saying it's not an obligation. We don't have to staff with anything. We don't have to close, we don't have to close the beach. So what is your idea of staffing for the beaches?
Well, I haven't come up with a staffing pattern, but I would be delighted to come up with a staffing pattern and work with you to be able to continue to provide the service, but not at the level we presently do it. I don't know the data on swim saves or accidents that the lifeguards have actually responded to, but if you're providing a service from 8 to 5, approximately?
10 to 5.
10 to 5. And we have 3 and 2 respectively at the 2 beaches. Why can't we cover it with 1 at each of the beaches? Understanding there's a gap when they have to take a break. You have an attendant there who's able to watch. So that's the staffing pattern
I think in the past,
getting at.
as a former rec person, in the past, there is a safety concern. So we do staff the beaches with those folks.
Yeah.
To Putnam's point, if we had one person, they take a break or they're sick, then no one's staffing the beach. That's a potential safety concern.
Well, it is a safety concern, but there are many hours at our beaches that are not staffed with lifeguards.
Yeah.
And
people
so
could go
there's
out
a
at
safety risk then.
Somebody could go out at 8 a.m., but I think the community knows that between those hours, the beaches are staffed with lifeguards, and that there's a safety component to that.
I understand that.
Yep.
And I'm challenging that as a consideration relative to the budget ask. And I respect what you've said. I still have the challenge.
I think we've also,
May I?
in the past too, just with the wages, we've also increased the dollar amount for staff because it's been hard to find staff, right? We've paid, how much have we paid in the last couple of years? Have we increased the salary by $1 or $2 an hour? Because it's been difficult to find staff that is consistent throughout the summer.
Yeah, we increased it $1 for the attendance last year, and then we're looking at increasing it for lifeguards this year.
I'd also say that understanding we're trying to reduce money, I've heard things before around the Lake Protective Association and quality of life. There's not a day when it's sunny that I don't pass by that beach, that there are tens of people out there every single day, and that's one of the beauties of this community is Elkins and Buckland Beach and people being able to go out there and enjoy themselves on a summer day. So for me, recreation and especially the beaches is a big part of the community.
Yep.
Kids grow up at those beaches. People have been going to those beaches for their entire lives. So I think having staff to support that, whether it's handing out equipment, helping with paddle boards, whether it's helping with picking up, cleaning up the beaches, it's important to have that staff there.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. That's really articulate. Can I just add one comment?
Actually, I really feel like I want to make a statement here.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there are all sorts of things that we can cut. And technically, I guess we really don't need to have lifeguards, but that seems to be an imprudent decision on my behalf. Number one, having beaches and the ability to have my children learn to swim was one of the reasons I moved to town. This is something that actually drives young people into this town. I mean, this is an important aspect. Not to mention that accidental drowning among school-age youth in the past 5 years has been, depending on the year, the #1 cause of accidental death among school-age children in this state. It's still a leading cause. It was not the major cause this past year. So just because we haven't had someone drown doesn't mean we won't have someone drown. And I really feel that this is foolhardy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'll just add, when we were working with the Selectmen back in November to kind of work through and refine our budget, one of the recommendations that we did present was, okay, what would it look like for us to eliminate our waterfront staff, right? What if we didn't have lifeguards? What if we didn't have beach attendants? Yeah, that'd be, there's a big bottom line there that we would be saving, and the Selectmen actually did not like that, and the community did not like that recommendation. And so that's why that has not been recommended.
And I did not recommend eliminating lifeguards and attendants. I am suggesting, and I will continue, a modification in the staffing pattern that would carry a reduction in the expense while still maintaining a level of service. And that's, I respect everybody's opinion. That's mine.
Okay. Lindsay?
I'm just going to piggyback off this. So say we have one lifeguard at one of these beaches and he or she goes on a break. Is then that expectation of care or service negated? Are they supposed to be over by the snack shed if somebody starts to drown? Or that's why I feel like we need more than one.
Well, but Lindsay, the argument then is, and I don't want to get into a staffing discussion at this level.
Sure.
I am proposing relooking at the staffing pattern and how it's configured to align with attendance at the beaches in the most optimal way, but try to do it with less cost. So there are times on our beaches where there are no lifeguards and there are plenty of people there. So the risk is there when there's no attendant or a lifeguard.
Sure. And I think with
So I'm just suggesting, and I'm going to drop it, and I've been beating this drum with you, Putnam, to try to look at staffing differently and provide a budget relief that might make sense.
I would say, totally understand where you're coming from and respect that. I would also say in Putnam's defense that we've pushed, as a former rec commissioner, we've pushed Putnam to increase the staff wages so that beaches can be covered for a longer period of time. So, because to your point, you're right, the lifeguards are off at 5, and in the summer those beaches have people out there till 9 o'clock, right? So I think if anything, it's underfunded than potentially overfunded. Just my thought. That's my opinion. Lindsay?
Can we move this along to the actual discussion maybe at hand, which is the difference between the Board of Selectmen's recommendation and Putnam's?
Well, let's make sure there's no other questions on staff wages. Okay. So I'd like Bibi, maybe you could speak for the selectmen on the reduction to the rec department budget by $50,000.
I'm going to try. This was part of a discussion during the budget period where there were some conversations about the programming that is being done by the Recreation Commission and the amount of programming. Obviously, we need a full-time person in the summer for the beaches, as we've all just talked about. We need a full-time person to be running those beaches and running the staff, running the attendance. There's a lot of programming in the summer separate from the beach programs. We were just talking a little bit about some of the programming in the rest of the year. Now, my position is, I believe if the town, it's important, as John just said, we have young families moving into this town because they see our beaches, our programming there, and our other activities that we run. I think a full-time rec director is important with full, robust programming. We also talked a little bit about, do we separate this job into two part-time positions? One that would be running the beaches in the summer and the other that does all of the event planning. The Rec Commission folks came to us and said, how are you going to hire two part-time people like that? It's very hard to fill part-time positions. So Bill and I said, we'll kind of put this as a placeholder. We'll take the 50,000 out, and then we will let the budget committee bounce it around. Again, like I said, I am in support of a full-time rec director if the robust programming is there. We have other agencies in town that do programming. Putnam's done a pretty good job of partnering up with a lot of these folks. The Outing Club, the Center of the Arts, the COA, and things like that. So that's my position, a little wishy-washy, but I look forward to the conversation among all of you.
Yeah, I think I could speak, being on both the Budget Committee and part of Rec. When we had a part-time department head, we did lack a lot of these different programs. And in fact, the Outing Club tried to come in and help. I don't think that they met that need. We gave the Outing Club money. We had a fund that we, what was it, $65,000 or, sorry, what was the, let's see, $25,000 for an activity fund, and then $69,000 the next year. And I think overall we saw some programs get done, but not to the full extent that we've kind of gotten it back. I feel like we've gotten back to where we were prior to a part-time person. If the selectmen feel like we want to do more programming, I think that's a discussion that they should have with Putnam and Jackie and the rest of the commission on, we expect X level of support or programming, but I think to go back to a part-time director, you would see a far drop in the number of programs that are provided. And I think to the point, trying to find someone who will work part-time and have that be consistent would be very difficult. That's just my opinion. Any other thoughts? Lindsay?
Well, I'm in agreement. I really question it. I feel it would be short-sighted to eliminate the full-time and go to part-time. That being said, I do feel like maybe we see more activities and/or events. Not even events, but I think the expectation might be more programming and/or activities, one-offs. But yeah, other question for Kim is does a part-time employee receive benefits? No. Okay. Yeah, I just feel that we did a regroup, as I was also on the Rec Commission. We did years ago, we did a regroup at COVID time to kind of reset because there was an opportunity because nobody was doing anything. So shut it down, looked at other partnerships, and then opened back up. And we tried to regroup and reframe kind of the operations of the Recreation Department And it has, in the 4 or 5 years, just kind of shifted back again naturally to what is in front of us now, what's your job, and that's just at least my observation. So again, I think this is a little short-sighted, definitely worth the conversation, but I mean, I would move to put the 50,000 back into the operating budget.
Just for just for clarification, what year were we part-time? Do we have a part-time person?
22, 23?
It was voted in 2022 to go from part-time to full-time.
Yeah,
In
when
August of
when
2020.
Scott left in 2020, and so we went to part-time when Scott left, tried that for a year. Putnam was the part-time person, and then the selectmen decided to go back to full-time.
And that was the shift during COVID. It was an opportune time to let's try something else that has been suggested to, in meetings and whatnot. And they did. I think I left the commission maybe 21 or so.
Yep.
But it's transitioned back to where the position is now at this point. It just took a little while from COVID, I think.
So it sounds like you have a motion, but I want to make sure other people have a chance to comment or ask questions. Karen?
I have a comment. One thing that has jumped out to me is the timing of this. Some months ago, when the budgets were presented to the Board of Selectmen in this room, I don't recall hearing at those meetings or at that day concern about the programming. And so here we are, some weeks later in November, and then the concern surfaces. So what jumps out to me there is, like, if there was concern about programming, should that have not been raised sooner? So that then there could have been changed, adapted, the feedback that you need more programming versus from October to November, what changed? So to me, this just feels a little reactionary. And the question I would have is, if it were to pass, what would not happen that would have happened without going part-time? Because I just see full-time, part-time, full-time, part-time. And I'm looking for things that we can sustain and make a commitment to. So that's, and again, this is not a point of view, this is just a question, just observing.
No. I think, so Putnam, I don't know if this is everything, and I won't speak for Putnam or Jackie, but at least on this sheet, it shows what the differences would be with full-time versus part-time, and what some of the programs we would lose. I would imagine there's many more programs outside of just these that would go away.
Correct. Those are the major ones, but, when, Lindsay, you had mentioned trying more one-offs. We actually have tried a number of one-offs this past year. Putnam advertised like a day of gratefulness around Thanksgiving, and then we tried to do like some big eclipse party, and we didn't get, we didn't get takers, So part of this rebuilding since the dark days of COVID has been, getting back to those big anchor seasonal events that we all love, bringing back Strawberry Fest. I know Haunted Happenings and Halloween has gotten bigger than ever. Winter Carnival and returning that, and then trying to find the mix of the smaller things. And so, we have a very committed and engaged commission, and a lot of fresh ideas and a lot of energy to make it happen. Julie could probably lead us in a drum circle right now. That would be amazing. And so I think some of the ideas we have is like, well, maybe the one-off isn't appealing to our market, right? Maybe we need to figure out a program that's 6 weeks long and you're, whatever. So we're still experimenting, but I am really proud of the work we've done to document our existing events. We've created playbooks and project plans to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, that we are sustainable, that as new members join the commission, they know what has to happen for the Strawberry Fest or Winter Carnival. And now that we've gotten our house in order, it does give us the capacity to continue to expand, which is what the community has asked us to do in our community surveys. So I agree, I think it would be it would kill our momentum and have a negative impact on quality of life if we were to reduce this position from full-time to part-time.
Other comments or questions? I think John's got it.
Okay, go ahead.
BB, yeah, I've got a couple. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
Nope.
I'm
Nope.
jumping in.
Go ahead, John.
BB, so or perhaps Kim, when we were part-time on this position, was it part-time throughout the year? Was it a seasonal job? Was it, how were the hours divided up? And
Yeah, it was full-time in the summer because really running the beaches, June, July, August, was full-time. And then the rest of the year was part-time.
I'm
I
sorry.
want to say 15, 20 hours a week, yeah.
And I started out part-time. I started out doing the beaches, and then I was part-time, and then I did the beaches full-time, and then I was into the full-time role in 2023. So I kind of have an idea of what it is like to do both full-time and part-time. So the part-time is very limited, for sure, and you don't have the ability to make all those connections. You don't have the ability to increase the number of programs that you do, to promote the number of programs you do, and also to try to kind of, as Jackie had mentioned, solve some of those challenges that get in the way of what is a successful program, what people want around here, how to really make those connections to draw people in, and that is always a work in progress that we continue to develop and grow and improve with.
Lou, you had a point.
Okay. Yes, I think the genesis of this was, and again, my conversations with one of the proponents of, at the Board of Selectmen, it was basically the idea that we needed to cut, number of percentage, like 5% of the budget, because that would be good. And so it just so happens that, look for places to cut. I find that spurious. And frankly, we saw what happens when you just do cut for the sake of cut just past weekend in the school system. When you do a budget, you do it for a reason. Recreation is a cornerstone of quality of life in our town. I do believe that, if any, we should be vigorously expanding the availability of winter programs in London, because that is a time where, kids are at home. They tend to be cloistered at home. They would like to do something. The availability of a winter carnival, things that have to do with increasing the activity of this town, the activity of the children, the activity of the adults, participation of the community. The old adagio from Latin, mens sana, corpore sano, healthy mind, healthy body. It is our responsibility to provide for proper recreation for our people, and I think a fully workable, fully working recreation office is in the best interest of our people.
First time I think we've had Latin used at the Budget Committee, but thank you. John, you had a comment.
One question, the vehicle, the recreation vehicle, how often is it used?
I would say not enough, and I hope.
What's the answer?
So I use it to plan for events. I use it to move things around, but we need to be able to use it more frequently for events and trips and things like that, the way it used to be used, and I am fully aware of that, for sure.
So I also have a comment. I'm not ready to vote on this tonight. I have concerns about the events that I don't want to elaborate on right here, but I would like to talk about privately, and I wish that we could hold off this vote until some of us have had that opportunity.
Well, we have a motion from Lindsay to increase the budget back to the original 236.
And I second it.
And there's a second. Any other questions or comments?
I would be with John on this, that I would.
You can abstain.
No, let me ask the question. My question is this, for what you've told me, what you communicated to me on a different question was that we can hold the motions till the end and make a motion then. So I would like to just suggest that being a possibility, that rather than making the motion tonight and taking a vote tonight, for those of us who would like to think about it more, because a thought that I have in mind is I respect the mood and the work I'm trying to get to have a tight budget as much as possible. And so the question that comes to mind, if we were to increase the overall budget by 50,000, what's that going to do to the tax rate, et cetera? And are there other possibilities to find some savings that could help offset that? So that's what comes to my mind. So I would like to be with John to wait to take the vote on this.
So I would say, I don't disagree. I think we've already seen some savings tonight for $20,000 for the hospital. I think it would be nice for the selectmen to go into there as they have discussions. We will vote on all these budget line items again, right? So we'll have an opportunity. I think, my personal opinion, it would be a good idea right now if we, as a committee, had a stance on where we think that rec budget should be. I understand you might want to have more conversations, which is fine. You may want to think about things, fine. I don't see the harm in voting right now on, do we want to add the money back as a budget committee? And then when we come back to then vote on all the line items, we can still do that and still have a reconciliation with the selectmen.
So just to be clear, so this vote tonight, if it were to be reinstated, the 50,000, that would then go into the result, that would be like, that would be in the budget that the budget committee then goes back to the selectmen to reconcile?
No, we will still vote on all the lines
Okay.
at the end, right, as a budget committee. I think this might help save some time to do that. I think it'd be nice for Putnam and the Rec Commission to know where the budget committee stands on, as of right now, on the issue. If it was a line item for $4,000 versus $5,000 for gas, I might say, fine, let's hold it off, but I think this is a pretty big line item, and there's some good.
So I understand where you're heading, and I'm okay with that. I want to challenge Putnam to really look at other areas of the budget that wouldn't compromise the delivery of services that might help the budget, understanding you've got to have somebody to lead and manage and plan and forecast two-way service that adds value to the community. So that's where my head is at. I think it's really hard to sit here with the person who we're saying, we'll take half of you, which isn't going to happen, and we've got to make a decision that's a very serious decision affecting a person and decision that's affecting the effectiveness, current and future, of a big service to the town. So I hear you, but I think it sets us up for tough conversation that gets kicked down the road. So my recommendation is, I'm happy to vote on the reestablishing the 50, but mine is to come back and say, can you come back with something to this committee that would be a more robust evaluation of staffing and other cost areas that might help the budget as a whole?
May I comment on that? I do think, the commission is definitely, open to looking at other ways of reducing the budget. I think, and I've actually been frustrated by the framing of the conversation of a debate between full-time and part-time, because it's most certainly not a part-time job over the summer, it doesn't work as a part-time. And so, I know the commission is definitely open to trying to find some other savings, and so whatever needs to happen procedurally.
I think the motion just, and tell me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, is you just want to add the 50,000 back to the full-time salary. It's not the rec department budget, it's just the salary. So, because in the latest.
Well, it's to the salary line item, which is a component of the budget.
Correct, right, but it's the salary, it's not the entire rec department budget, it's just for the salary. So it's to go from.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So my creative mind goes in the place of, I don't know, Putnam, your job, and I don't even pretend to even have any understanding of it whatsoever. But I surmise it kind of is like a roller coaster. High demand, low demand, high demand, low demand. And some of it is predictable because you have events that are planned at certain points in time, and you have activities that are higher during, say, the summer months than they are during the winter months. So I look at there's capacity there. Is there something else that can be done within recreation that would support other activities of the town, not just recreation? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the Chris, my point is, I'm looking for more creativity as well as modifying the operating budget, understanding that there's got to be leadership and management of it. And half-time it isn't going to provide it.
I guess I'd look to Jackie and Putnam to articulate the ups and downs, as Charlie said. I personally don't feel like, being on the rec commission, that there are ups and downs throughout the year of like busy times and slow times. It's fairly busy the entire year, just given the amount of programming and what has to go into some of those programs. For instance, Strawberry Fest, when do you typically start planning for Strawberry Fest?
Yeah, I mean, it's months and months before, and it's kind of a non-stop cycle of planning for events. We're 6 months out, we're 5 months out, we're 4 months out, and then to say, okay, we're evaluating what happened. So it's not like there are times that when you come up to an event, things get much busier and intense, but it's always pretty consistent, and I think that is always the effort we do to try to continue to have those times to be able to really enhance our programming and organize and evaluate and reach out and continue to make partnerships with people, help volunteers, any of those things. It's not really pretty much nonstop in a good way.
Okay. I'm throwing out options for consideration.
Appreciate that.
One other consideration, revenue. Can we become a revenue generator in areas
We do have
that we don't currently get revenue in?
There is the revolving fund too, that we do generate revenue. I mean, you can speak to some of the areas, but you're looking for additional.
I'm talking about, let's get creative and get a little more aggressive around it and help the budget, but also help the fact that we need a recreation department. It serves a very vital purpose. And I don't like cutting a position without some real substantive facts, and then and it affects an individual. And so I'm pushing for. I've made my points.
Mark, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same question I asked the garden ladies. So if you cut the budget, will I have the same or better experience than I currently have right now?
No. And that's not made from a cavalier kind of, or disrespectful kind of thing, standpoint, but it is, it's made from a realistic standpoint, I think, and from my experience doing it part-time and my experience doing it full-time.
So Lindsay, do you want to make a motion to articulate the motion so everybody's clear on what it is?
Yeah, I'll stick with it. I'll make a motion to put back $50,000 to go into the recreation administrator's salary, or the director's salary,
So what would that amount be?
I don't know.
Is it the original $72,894?
So, well, no,
No,
he's saying we don't want to do that.
No, I'm, sorry, time out.
No, I get it.
You made an initial motion.
Right.
Was your motion just for the salary, or was it for
Yes.
other areas?
No, it was just for the salary to be put back in.
Okay.
And we can, yes.
So 50,000. So I'm just trying to, so everybody understands what the salary would now be.
What was it before they cut it?
The salary would go back up to 75,080.
75080.
Now, point of information, when the salary was cut, would also the benefits were cut too, or just the salary? Okay, sounds good.
I was asked just to pull $50,000 out of the rec budget, so we pulled it out of that line item, but I didn't adjust anything else with that. So putting that 50,000 back in, the budget is now 236,929, all told.
So with that vote, then, we'd be increasing the budget tonight. That's what the
No.
decision.
So we're just voting to, when we then vote on the budget line items, it reflects the full-time position. Does that make sense?
Well, Lynn just gave a number that is higher than the number in a book. So I guess that's.
So the book will
I'm trying
be.
to understand this.
That will be updated, right?
Right.
So all we're saying right now is when we come back to vote on all the different budgets, because we have to vote on all the budgets as a budget committee, it's going to reflect that our budget is different than the selectmen's budget, which is a full-time position at $75,080.
So then, just to be clear, by taking this vote, we are increasing the town's budget. We are increasing total appropriations.
We are increasing the salary for the rec director based on what the selectmen had recommended. We're asking, we're as a budget committee are saying we would want it to be a full-time position, and if that means that the tax rate goes up by
Right.
whatever, then.
That's what I'm saying. We're increasing our total appropriations.
If that's how you want to word it.
Well, it's,
then
I'm
that's-
just.
Correct way of wording.
That's the math.
Okay.
I mean, that's, I just want to make that clear, because I think what Charlie raised were opportunities to look at within that recreation department budget and find savings. Is that what you were suggesting?
Correct.
So I'm just going to say again, what would make me much more comfortable with this is to have those savings found before increasing this budget.
I would say that.
That's my perspective.
So I would say that when we go back to vote, because all the line items are the line items, if Putnam wants to come back to the selectmen and/or budget committee with a revised budget, he can certainly do that. Or, when we vote on the final budget, you can also make motions to decrease line items to save money. Okay, so the motion is to increase salary by $50,000.
Second.
You second it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
I'm going to abstain on this.
You're abstaining, okay. So we have, what was the count?
So we had 2 opposed, I believe we had 2 opposed, 1 abstain, and 7 in favor.
Okay,
Is that 10?
that's 10.
I'm not even the finance officer, look at that.
All right.
And Chris, I want to be clear, my opposition is not an opposition of a full-time position. My conjecture is, and request, as a budget committee member, is for Putnam to reevaluate the operating budget. I've conveyed one area, which is staffing at our beaches, and come back with a recommendation. You're either going to stay pat, or you can find adjustments that wouldn't materially compromise the programming.
Sure. Okay.
May I
Can I
say also
add-
to, look at revenue? Yeah. Okay.
I think some of Charlie's ideas are interesting, especially around adding extra revenue programs. I'd add a little bit of color a little color commentary to that by saying that I personally wouldn't mind the budget staying the same, and I know this is not the purview of the budget committees, but I think the numbers, the participation numbers should go up so that the per unit cost goes down. And that's the way I would look at it. It's a little bit different. As I said, just a little bit of color commentary.
Okay. All right. So any other, dare I ask, questions about rec? Karen?
I have a question. What was brought to my attention not long ago was the condition of the swing set at Elkins Beach/Playground. And is that in your budget? Is it in the Recreation Department's budget for the repair of that?
So the replacement project, we're looking into that. I've reached out to a company and gotten a quote about a not exact same, but a pretty close replacement to the swing set down there. And been talking to Sam about trying to get that constructed, and then also having that that's not going to be in the budget. That would be a capital reserve expenditure.
So will that swing set be operational by this summer?
The hope would be to have it installed in the spring.
And the funding for that comes from capital?
The Rec Department Capital Reserve.
And that is available to spend if you were to get the equipment, you have that to spend. Great, thank you.
Tracy, point of information.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to, since Putnam, you did not mention it, perhaps because you were not in when we drafted the 2018 local emergency procedures for the town of New London. One of the missions to the bus is to, in case of a serious emergency, to aid in the evacuation of people from areas where there may be a particular hazard. And we were particularly back then thinking about Bittersweet and stuff like that. So just want to make sure that that's on the table.
All right, I'm going to move us on to library. Thank you, Putnam. Thank you, Jackie. So library is on page 17. Let's see. Do we have that?
Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Tutwiler. I'm the Library Director for the Tracy Memorial Library. So thank you for having me, Chair, Vice Chair, and Board. I'm here to talk a little bit about the library and our upcoming fiscal year 26 budget. For those of you who do not know, the library supports the entire New London community and also some of our outlying communities through non-resident library cards. We provide information access services to everyone, entertainment, and support lifelong learning, both in terms of building early literacy skills for our young children in school, and also supporting full lifelong learners all the way up to our senior citizens. One thing I'm pretty excited about moving forward in this role is we do have a new strategic plan process that we are rolling out. It was kind of interesting for me coming in as I came in on July 1st that this process had already started, but I had the ability to kind of navigate it as it got up and off the ground, identifying ways in which we can further support our community and really target certain demographics that need additional support. Primarily some of our senior citizens in the area and our teenagers as well. So moving forward, you're going to see more, careful targeting of our resources and our programs towards those demographics and groups. I know that we are pretty late. Thank you all for burning the midnight oil with me. So I'll just speak very briefly about the budget and then kind of open it up to questions, if that's okay. So overall, our budget is about 3% of an increase year over year from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. However, 6.6% of that will be an increase from the town appropriation. Now, the reason for that is in the past, we've had library capital reserves, kind of offsetting some of that funding structure that we've seen year over year. And unfortunately, that well is kind of dry. There's $29,000 left in that account, but $25,000 of which is already earmarked for the current fiscal year. In addition to that, kind of a philosophical change from the previous director to myself was looking at our receipts and, looking as to whether these are actually realistic. For example, we had $10,000 budgeted in the current year as a receipt for grants. And I can tell you, looking over, the past 5-10 years, the most we've ever taken in was $600. So it's things like that that we just need to really realign to realistic values. And that's kind of what you're seeing in what I'm presenting tonight. I'm joined by Thomas Carley. He is our Library Board of Trustees treasurer. And I'll go ahead and just open it up to any questions you all may have.
I just want to say welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And then I believe last year there was an issue in regards to a stone wall retention stone wall. I don't know the update on that. If you could
Sure.
share that.
Richard, nice to see you. That's been my pet project for, I actually volunteered to help with the repair of that wall. There was a $100,000 capital request last year to have it rebuilt. I visited with the facilities committee. We had robust discussion. I said, I think I can do it for $197.02 or something like that. And after several sessions, me and the wall, and actually enlisted a little help from a few people, but not much. It's now repaired. It has some, I could give you a wall description, but I'll spare you that. You can make the case to replace the whole thing. I made the case to repair, and I'm confident that the repairs made will satisfy the integrity of the wall for years. And as the planning for the garden continues and the whole facility itself, the indoor-outdoor walls might be affected, but for now, I think it's in pretty good state.
And thank you for that, Mr. Kelsey. You've
Thank
done
you.
an excellent job. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the library is, it's an older building, but, it's a jewel of this community. Our garden recently won a special contribution award from the New Hampshire Library Trustees Association. And it was so great to me to see earlier tonight, like how much emphasis on, making New London beautiful and really spending the resources for that. Because many places don't do that. I grew up in Europe. Partially, I was a military brat, and there's so much, design, intentional design in their cities towards incorporating beauty, and often in the States you don't really see that, but in New London you do, and it's part of what drove me, 2,500 miles from Flagstaff, Arizona to here. So just wanted to, that made me feel really, like this is the right place. I just wanted to throw that out there.
If I could, Richard, you've had a little bit of time to assess and heard the refocusing that you're in process with. Are you at a place where you can give us a sense of the impact the strategic plan may have on plant facility? Because we all know we've got an old building, and it's I call it a bucket for money because it needs constant updating, renovation, et cetera. Do you have any sense for the impact programming, space, technology will have on the building that's going to continue to require significant money?
Sure. I think in some ways that's almost three different questions,
it is.
just because, you know, we do so much different stuff. I'd say on the technology front, I know not this upcoming year, but the year after, we're likely to be looking at a new server replacement. It's hit 10 years, which is, you know, generally when we want to get that hardware replaced to something more up-to-date and modern. But I don't know that that would fall under, you know, strategic planning changes. To me, strategic planning changes really, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, you know, we really want to build a place for our youth, our teenagers in particular, where they feel a sense of ownership over it. And, you know, we've had many different discussions about how to best utilize the existing space. You know, we do have I call it the dungeon at the bottom of the library where, you know, it's mostly used for storage, and I think it could be repurposed, you know, with enough investment to make it, you know, a teen space. That would include some level of capital investment. But, you know, after we finish this process, that's something that we're going to look at because we've identified it as a need for this community. You know, anecdotally, I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to my lunch break and walked over to Dunkin' Donuts and I see like 20 teenagers there and I'm like, well, Dunkin' Donuts is doing pretty well here, but, you know, why don't they come to the library instead, you know? So I think they just need a space where they feel like they have a sense of ownership over it. So I do think that's a priority. In terms of the building as a whole, you know, right now we're really looking at, you know, getting our roof repaired. We're contracting with Frank LeMay of Milestone Construction to work with a roofer to get that done, and we have narrowed that focus down, looked at, you know, the different options and being really mindful of the, you know, the cost of the project, making sure that we're going with, you know, an economical bidder, but one that meets our quality and standard of work. So that's moving forward using current funds that are available in this fiscal year capital reserve. You know, that being said, you know, there's exterior repairs that will likely need to happen. And as I was actually prepping for this meeting, I looked at some of those repairs and you know, they were identified in 2017 and they still have not been done. So, you know, you can only kick the can down the road so far until, you know, ultimately you do have to repair those. Nobody wants rotting wood where, you know, water's leaking into the building. So it is a balancing act. You know, there's a finite amount of funds, and I'm sure everybody in this building would love to fund everything, but we're going to have to be very intentional with what we choose. So I would say make sure that we're not having, you know, water leak into the building first, and then once we do that, start looking at some of those interior renovation projects to make more available space for community need.
I just want to.
Can I add one thing on that?
Yeah, please.
We're still fairly early on in the strategic plan, but I think the Board of Trustees understands that if the scope is as big as we think potentially it might be in terms of renovating the building, we potentially may need to go out on a capital campaign. So we wouldn't tap town funds for that. We need the town funds for the roof and the siding. But the library hasn't gone out on a capital campaign in a long, long time. And I think that people would understand the value of that. But it's preliminary.
Yeah, I agree, and thank you for that. I'll just get my questions on the budget, Richard, really quickly out to you. I will say, as a budget committee member, it's hard to evaluate the budget other than just look at the obvious, what was it last year, 2 years, 3 years, so without the detailed assumptions. So I know the Board of Trustees goes through that, the Finance Committee goes through that exercise. We don't have the value of the assumption set to support the line items, which in the future going forward would be really helpful. Is the Tracy Memorial Garden, it's a separate 501c3,
Yeah,
right?
that is correct.
And is its budget in this budget?
It is not. They have their own separate, they actually meet tomorrow. Their board meets tomorrow at the library if anybody is interested in attending. I don't believe that their current operating budget is up on their agenda for tomorrow, but they've had some large capital campaigns in the past. Getting new, irrigation installed was a big one. The last board meeting I was in, we were talking about what are we going to plant in the spring, but they have their own set of
And
budgets.
so that never is in the purview of
That's correct.
us at all.
Now, in our grounds line, we do still own kind of all the trees back there next to the garden. That is the purview of the library to maintain, as well as the front of the building.
Okay.
For example, we had chippers out earlier this winter to trim back all the dormant trees because the canopies were getting too big and really encroaching on that garden space that we want to make sure is continually beautified.
And that's the $6,000 line item in the budget.
That's correct.
And that was, I wanted to understand what that one was for. I'm the nickel and dime guy, so I got to ask because
That's okay,
So professional meetings has been, the budget ask is 4,000, and the average over the last 5 years, if you average the last 5 years' expenditure, is 1,000. Is that an area for adjustment, or is it a?
It may be an actuals alignment. Let me take a look at that one.
It might be, but I've been known to have referenced wrong lines, but it's, under travels and dues. Yeah, row 63, it's a 4,000 ask. I just took the averages of the actuals for 5 years and came up with $1,001. So.
A lot of that was, there was more travel and professional meetings envisioned for
The
fiscal
strategic.
'24, and then Crystal left in January of 2024. So we had a gap in leadership there where our 3 other managers couldn't go anywhere. They had to
All right.
stay at the library and run it. So I think there was much more anticipated travel and professional meetings than was actually incurred just because of Crystal's departure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So looking over the grounds, we did ask for an additional $1,000 in that line item. The reason for that is our snow removal group no longer had the capacity to cover the library. We were unable to find somebody for this current winter cycle. So, if you're driving down Main Street at 8:30 in the morning after snow, you're probably going to be seeing me shoveling snow out there. It just needs to be done, and we want to make sure that all of our patrons can safely and efficiently get into our building. But moving forward, we'd really like to go back to a contracted service for that, and bless their hearts, our last contracted service did it for less than they probably should have, which is likely why they dropped us as a member of their route.
My question is looking at wages, it's up 0.3%. Is that correct? That's line item 18
For wages,
under personnel on the,
our total wages and benefits increase should be 0.7% increase.
well, that's the total, but wages are up 0.3?
Yes, 0.3.
How did you, what
So
does
the
that
reason,
reflect? Changes in?
so the reason for that, the previous director had put basically cleaning into that line, and as you look at this now, you're going to see cleaning move down into its own line item. I can't speak for what the thought process there was. I'm not that person, but I think the intent was to hire somebody as a library staff person who would do cleaning. I think we're very happy with our contracted cleaning company, so really that's just an actuals adjustment. And then furthermore, we had a wage compensation increase requested last year that was approved. So I think we were a little conservative in how we adjusted wages last time. And then once Crystal left, we had a little bit of additional balance. So I think that's why those numbers are a little odd. What I can say is that 0.3% increase, that does also include a 3% cost of living adjustment for our staff and a 2.5% increase in their step. So they will be getting a compensation adjustment in the positive, which was a priority.
So if you were to normalize for removing that cleaning service, what would that number more or less look like? Do you know?
From last year or for
Well,
the coming year?
In terms of it's showing up 0.3, and as you just explained, you had pulled out the cleaning services. So in normalizing it, is it, I'm just trying to get a adjusted or a normalized amount that it.
I'd have to probably pull up
Okay,
the individual personal
If you don't have
wages
it, that's fine.
spreadsheet.
I was
Yeah.
just curious, is it in line with the town, do you think?
It would be in line with the town. The library was not a part of the wage adjustment that the town of New London did, which is why my predecessor asked for the wage compensation increase last year. And this puts us to where we're, I think our most expensive, if you will, part-time staff member would be making $20.04 an hour.
Sure.
So that should probably, we have 13 staff members, four of which are full-time, one of which is a temporary employee, and all the other ones are part-time. So that should give you an idea of, our pay range.
Are you fully staffed right now?
We are fully staffed right
Oh,
now.
terrific.
We
Thank
did
you.
lose an individual earlier, but we have since replaced her, and she went on to bigger and better things, taking a library director job. So we're very excited. You never want to see somebody great go, but you're happy to support them as best you can.
Any other? Got a question?
Just wanted to get your take. Are you currently satisfied with the physical security, I'm saying fire detection, fire suppression, burglary, et cetera, of the building, or do you anticipate more expenditures in that?
I think where we are is pretty good. It's, in some ways, it's kind of, I don't want to say funny because that's the wrong word. Coming from a previous organization where there was significant, physical safety issues in that facility, this community is very different in a much more, healthy way. So the existing security system, I think is perfectly adequate. I do not think that there's people chomping at the bit to get into the library to steal things, which, to be blunt, happened at my old system. It happened on a monthly basis there. We don't have to look into, contracted security services like many other libraries are having to do. My previous system, we actually entered into a joint program with the police force to have basically police aid candidates. So they were not sworn officers, but they were officers in training rather, basically come into the library to do security because we had significant, mental health issues in that facility. Those problems do not, I don't want to say they don't exist here, but they're not as prevalent. And I think the library's in a good place.
And we put in a new fire sprinkler system in the last 10 years, so we're good to go there.
Any other questions? All right. Richard, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you all for having me.
Appreciate it. Let's move to boards and committees. Hopefully this won't take very long. Patriotic purposes, $300. Kim, for the new members, do you want to let them know what that $300 is for?
We have a member of a veteran who gets the money and does flags and VFW kinds of things, celebrating our veterans.
Okay. Any questions on that? None? All right, archives, $1,000.
If you haven't visited archives lately, you should really go down and check out what they have down there. It's pretty amazing. Basement of the town building.
Questions on that? All right, energy? $900?
Energy does a lot of good things for us.
Yep.
Yep, Jamie Hess and his folks.
Jamie said, I don't see Jamie, yep. And then, any questions on energy? No? Housing, $6,500. I didn't make the list.
Boy, I'm keeping you
Gets an
from
award
leaving.
for being last.
Kim owes you one, just so you know, Kim owes you one.
I'm awake, I'm here. No, thank you. We've reduced our budget from last year by $10,000. We were blessed to have a grant from the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority with some very exciting work. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. I will also use the opportunity to say on April 5th, we're going to have our second community forum at Colby Sawyer, probably in the morning about 8:30, so mark your calendars. But this is a reduction of $10,000. Why do we need it? Each grant is written very carefully as to what the target is, what the goals are. We drafted the grant request specifically to meet those goals and targets, but there's always something that might be to the benefit of the town that will cost a little bit more. And we wouldn't want to sell ourselves short by not having that little bit of money to do what makes us different, perhaps, than what the way the grant program is written. So I'll answer any questions, but it's a $6,500 request. It has some secretarial costs in it, but it's really because I'm expecting we're going to have something that doesn't fall specifically within the grant program.
Great. Any questions? Lou?
Yeah, I've been in the budget committee now for almost, going on 3 years. And it's been always, since I got here, a heartbreak of mine is the fact that the town does not have an empirical master plan. And I'm still waging that battle, but however, I do think that what you did with your contracting in looking at the demographic part of it can be a strong input into a beginning of a more cohesive, understandable, and empirical master plan for this town. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. That's part of our study of what our town needs and who we are, laying out some facts so that when it comes around to 2026, perhaps a town meeting, the community will be well informed and ready to make a decision on some housing changes, or perhaps not, but at least will be informed on facts and a very thoughtful study. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other business?
To adjourn?
Any motions to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved by John, seconded by Lou. All those in favor? Aye.
Yay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.